Well, it's been quite a long time since I've put any videos up on this account, and I do realize that. So I thought it was about time that I got something else up, and I came to the realization that I hadn't done any videos of the Submariner just on its own. And I know it's quite a popular watch, so I knew there'd be definitely some people out there that'd be interested in seeing one on it. And I know I did a video with its comparison to an Invicta, but even I realize that those videos aren't the best of quality, and there's a lot of things that if I talked about I didn't talk about very well, and it was also very hard to see even what I was looking at, because I'm sure you remember, if you saw those, that the video quality was pretty poor. So now is my chance to try to make up for it, so I thought I'd go ahead and do a review on the Rolex Submariner. And I'm sure if you're watching this, there's not much I really need to tell you about it. I'm sure you're well aware of what it is. The Rolex Submariner was first introduced in 1953, so it's been around quite a long time. A lot of famous people have worn it. I mean, James Cameron, the director of Titanic, has one. James Bond wore it for many years. Mostly Sean Connery's the one that had it. Had many interesting attachments. Roger Moore had one that it was the bezel was magnetic and would pull stuff up to it, and it's just all sorts of cool things. And it's a very famous watch, and as most famous watches are, and as most Rolexes are, there's obviously quite a bit of fakes out there too. In fact, last that I heard, this is still the most counterfeited watch in the world. So, I mean, that's obviously both good and bad, and obviously it's a nice enough watch that people all want a copy of it, but that means you also got to be careful when you're buying one. So, I've owned this watch since January of 2009, so this is now January 14th, as you can see on the date window, of 2010, so I've had it almost exactly a year. I don't remember the date of purchase. I guess I could find it. I traded in a Breitling Navitimer for it. I've had it a year so far. It's been a pretty nice watch. Accuracy as far as timekeeping has been phenomenal. I've set it twice since I've had it. The first time I set it to daylight savings time, or when I first got it, and then I set it again when daylight savings time here in the States switched over, so I set it back. I set it forth an hour and set it back an hour, so I guess I've set it 3 times. So it's been extremely accurate, and I think, I haven't even noticed any, it's kept perfect time. I mean, I haven't kept track of seconds, but it hasn't lost a minute, so it's losing, less than 2 seconds. It's losing only a few seconds a year, if any. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I haven't noticed any real accuracy problems with it at all. So anyway, I guess I should start. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's on the crown here. We have a what Rolex calls their trip lock clasp. Let me see if I can set the camera down, if it will focus still, so I can show you. Let's see if I can get this to focus here. This is what Rolex calls a trip lock crown. Excuse me, I said clasp. Basically, you unscrew it, and you'll see this little black line here. That's actually rubber. That's a washer, and that's what helps to make the watch waterproof. So obviously if you buy a Rolex Submariner and you don't see that rubber seal there, that's almost an immediate giveaway that the watch is a fake. The rubber is there as a barrier for water, like I just said, so obviously when this is screwed down all the way, the watch is watertight. And as it says on the dial, and I'm sure you're probably familiar, it's good to 1,000 feet. Or what is it, 300 meters. The conversion's not exact, but that's the way they put it. Where else to begin? Oh yeah, the bezel right here. I'm sure you're all familiar. It's a real one, like this one is 120 clicks to go all the way around, and it's a unidirectional bezel, i.e. it only goes one way. There are Rolexes that are bidirectional, i.e. they go both ways, like the Rolex Explorer, and I want to say, I don't know, there's a few other ones. The Yacht-Master, I believe, is bidirectional too, although I haven't owned one, so don't quote me on that one in particular. And as I'm sure you probably know, it's unidirectional for one reason. It's a diving watch, so obviously you'll be taking underwater, and if those of you don't know how this works, you set this dot to the time you go underwater. So let's say I'm going underwater now. I set it till it's about 12 after. and then it keeps track of your time underwater. So, you know, when it gets to be like 30 after now, you know, you can see you've been underwater 18 minutes, and it's only one directional, because in case you bump it when you're underwater, it can only add time. It will never take away time, so that way you're not in a situation where you're going to set the time back and run out of air. So obviously that's a good feature to have, and obviously, you know, just about every other dive watch these days is the same way. I do have a vintage Tudor Submariner, which is, I want to say a 67 model. I think I've showed it in other videos. That particular watch is a bidirectional bezel, and so obviously they originally didn't start out that way, and I'm pretty sure, since the Tudor is basically identical to the Rolex, that originally the Rolex Submariner 2 was a bidirectional. So here's my Tudor, which hasn't been worn in a year apparently, and it's still ticking. That's interesting. But see, this you can go both ways. So, but if you see this on a Submariner now that does both ways, the bezel's either broken or it's a fake. So this is a Tudor Submariner. Anyway, back to the Rolex Sub. This particular watch that I'm showing you, my watch, is a U series. It's a 1997, and so it still says at the bottom of the dial. Let's see, I don't know if I can zoom in on this camera enough where you could read it. It's hard to see, it's kind of blurry. Down there on the bottom it's a T is less than 25 dial, and 99 and up. 99 they said Swiss at the bottom, and then 2000 I believe on, it's Swiss made. So there's little things that they've changed over the years. Also on newer models, these buffers where the clasp meets the case, or the bracelet, excuse me, meets the case, they have a different shape. Mine's flat. On the older ones they were flat. The newer ones there's like a bump here, so they've changed little things, but essentially it's not much different than a current watch. I do think you should take a look at the date while I have it in this position. One of the easiest ways to spot a fake is the date window. And as you can see, or maybe you can't, I don't know, it's kind of hard to moderate the zoom on this thing. The date window, I keep reflecting the camera, the date window fills up, or the date fills up the entire date window. So 14 is filling up the entire date window. A lot of fakes, the magnification is a lot weaker and the date is smaller. The date should fill up the entire, you know, Cyclops window. So that's another good way to tell a fake, by the way. Also, some of the fakes, these markers and the dashes next to them don't connect. I've seen a lot of fakes where the marker and the dash next to it are connected, so that's also something that's definitely way wrong. In terms of the bracelet, mine's older, so like I said, it's a 97. It could be a 98 too, because it's a U. It's the stereotypical Rolex class that a lot of people have given it criticism for feeling chintzy, and I happen to agree with them. It's not what you call a high quality bracelet. It's very lightweight, and I don't know, let me pull the camera up so I can show you a little bit better. It's just a standard bracelet. I'm sure even the fakes get the bracelet pretty right. I'm sure you've seen what they look like. It does have a diver's extension too, which is, let me see if I can pull it up here. It's right inside the clasp. It's hard to hold the camera and show you at the same time. Right where my thumb is the diver's clasp. To open it, you just press here, and it pops out, and you get about an extra inch on your bracelet. So for those of you who don't know, that helps it fit over a wetsuit, because your wrist, you know, with a wetsuit over it is a lot thicker. So make sure you hold the watch on properly. And it says Rolex on this side and on the other side of this piece too, so it's marked.